Mystic Reborn, an Archives of Evelium tale, written by Jeffrey Spate, narrated by Adam Blanford. Prologue. Deep within the interior of the ruins, I found him. With a simple offering, he returned to the world of the living. Telsidor's Missives. Diary entry dated 1st of Anar, 60 AF. Unearthed from the ruins of Anaris, the month of Emin, 1156 AT. Spara awoke on the forest floor. Leaf litter and dirt caked to the warm blood that streamed down her face. An intense, shooting pain coursed through her head. She gingerly felt the vacuous cavities that were once her eyes, and shook violently at the realization they were gone. What would she do without her sight? Why had her god left her this way? She took as deep a breath as her panic would allow, and tried to clear her mind of the fear. She was unsure how long she had been unconscious since witnessing Vela's rift consume Nor, the god of fire, and banish him to the hells of Pragaris for eternity. Crickets chirped not far from where she had fallen. In her mind, she could now only perceive the natural energy of the living, since the burst of energy from Vela's rift had seared her eyes. The crickets now resembled tiny fireballs amidst the shadows of the dense forest undergrowth. A vision flashed in her mind. Purple fire engulfed a great castle, its spires crumbling into the city below. A young woman with gray skin accepted a glimmering gold circlet upon her raven blue hair. The young woman peered out over a throng of subjects. Her eyes were pupilless, with amber irises and ringed in black. The Grey Queen. Vela must have wanted Spara to see this vision, to see the ramifications of impending chaos and the despairing future of the mortal races. It was as though Vela wanted to be certain someone would know the true impact of Nor's selfishness. Like lighting the wick of a candle, Nor's plot to claim Tiveriel as his own now set into motion an inevitability. Just as the candle burns bright only to eventually flicker out, so would the age of man. Spara gripped the rhodium orb she wore around her neck on a simple but unbreakable chain and took a deep breath. The pain radiating through her head faded along with the vision. She cried, not from the pain of her wounds or the loss of her sight, but for the end of the Age of Grace. Vela vanquished Nor, and then she ascended to Kalmandan's idyllic heavens in a burst of celestial energy, while her brothers, Kemen and Brinthor, relinquished much of their godly powers in favor of remaining on Tiveriel. The end of the Age of Grace meant gods would no longer walk alongside the mortal races. They would no longer maintain the balance between man and beast. By now, the other mystics, her fellow demigods, must have sensed Vela drift beyond the veil which hung between heaven and earth. The mystics would, no doubt, convene at Ember's Watch, which was always their plan should the gods find resolution to their perpetual war. Spara hoped they would await her return before they ascended themselves. Surely Adelon would. She must get to her love. Hot tears streaked down Spara's face, the pain of her injuries competing for her attention with the anguish that gnawed at her gut. She licked her lips, salt tinged with the fairest taste of blood coating her tongue. Wiping her face clean, she dried her hands across the front of her gown, imagining the sorry state of the Celadon silk, pushed the errant, sweat-soaked wisps of ebony hair from her cheeks, and set off through the forest. Spara burst from the Lazarus Woods, tripping over the rugged earth. Root and rock tore at her bare feet, every step accompanied by a twinge of pain propelling her onward. Finally, the sun warmed her face and she fell to her knees, thankful to be in its presence. She fumbled with her rhodium icon. Her hands shaking, she held the orb and ran her thumbs over its engraved surface. Vela, I need you now more than ever. She touched her forehead to the ground. How could you leave us like this? Did we not deserve better treatment for our devotion? Did I not deserve better than to be left blind and disfigured? She lay silent for a moment, her burning forehead welcoming the cool earth. She tried to come to terms with her current situation. She took a deep breath, suppressing the tears. "Adelon will know what to do," Spara said. She pulled herself up to her feet and took off in a sprint, the muted auras of the field's tall grasses racing by her in a blur. She needed to get to Ember's Watch and reunite with the other mystics before they ascended to Kalmandan to escape the Age of Chaos in favor of living amongst their gods. She gained speed, and 2 stark white angelic wings sprouted from her back. With 2 strong beats, the wings lifted her off her feet. She flew upward into the heavens and made southeast through the cloud-filled sky. She flew with purpose, despite not seeing the way before her. Drawn to the other mystics by the growing chirping sound resonating in her mind, she allowed the compulsion to guide her flight where her sight no longer could. "Adelon, hear me!" She sensed her proximity to Ember's Watch, where the mystics would gather in preparation of their ascension. "I need your help!" Warda was the first of the mystics to run from the central keep of Ember's Watch into the open field surrounding the stone tower. She shuddered at the alarming speed at which Spara, whose form left a trail of green ether, plummeted toward her. The others followed, guarding their eyes against the blinding sun. Spara's approach was awkward and uneven, her descent too steep. Coming up short of the gathering, she crashed into the earth, casting a shower of dirt and rock into the air like a small meteor colliding with Tiveriel's fertile surface. Adelon gasped, "Spara, no!" He ran to Spara's side, with the others a step behind. He was the largest of the mystics, standing nearly 7 feet tall. He donned sleeveless robes of saffron and red, and leather bracers studded with rubies to match his robes, his hulking forearms bulging from beneath. Adelon jumped into the crater Spara's impact had created, and found her tangled body lying face down, half buried in rubble. Warda slid down the loose dirt wall in close pursuit, rocks and soil shifting beneath her feet. When she reached Adelon, he was holding Spara's limp body in a brawny arm, wiping the hair and grime from her face. Her wings had receded. Her eyes! Adelon's face was pallid, his eyebrows furrowed. "A great power has seared them from her face. We must commune over her immediately." "Of course," Warda said, dropping to her knees beside him. Ember, Marina, Torrent, and Pyra joined them and surrounded Spara in the middle of the crater. The mystics closed their eyes and grasped their matching rhodium orbs. They prayed together, speaking in a celestial tongue. Light emanated from the bloodied holes where Spara's eyes once glistened, as green as the fresh growth of moss after the sowing moon. The glow intensified until 2 vibrant beams of light shot up into the late afternoon sky. Spara's eyelids blinked open. The light flowed from her sockets and revealed smoky gray orbs that swirled as though they each contained a burgeoning storm. "We failed." Warda hung her head. "How could this be?" "We didn't fail," Adelon said, his voice gravelly with despair. "The magic that took our eyes was far stronger than anything we can counter." Adelon helped Spara sit up and placed his hands on her face and kissed her. "I'm glad you found your way back to us before it was too late. What happened?" Spara told them of the events that led to her blindness. "This is both fantastic and deeply troubling news," Marina said, climbing to her feet and dusting off her pale yellow gown with delicate hands. She tangled her fingers in her short red hair and gazed into the distance. "If Vela has truly ascended, as Spara says, we must decide if we are to stay in Tiveriel and weather the Age of Chaos with a few remaining mortals, or follow her to Kalmandan ourselves." "Yes," Ember said. "There is much to consider." "There's more," Spara said. "The same force that took my eyes granted me a vision of the future. In that moment, I saw the Grey Queen. She is coming. I don't know when, but Vela showed me Tiveriel's destiny." "You are confused, child," Torrent said, still on one knee as he stroked his white beard. "The Grey Queen is nothing more than a children's story, a fiction from a bygone era." "I know what I saw, and my mind is clear," Spara said, her eyes flashing, a storm raging within them. "She's coming. Vela showed me. She wanted us to know what the future holds in store for Tiberial, perhaps to make our decision less of a burden. Warda stood, taking Spara by the hand. Come, my dear, let's go inside so you may get some rest. Free your mind from these troubles. She smiled as if expecting Spara to see her expression, then grimaced. She helped Spara to her feet and put her arm around her, the vibrant red of her gown contrasting with Spara's celadon silk, which had been reduced to soiled rags. Warda guided Spara into the great hall of Ember's Watch. Its stone walls were unadorned, but for a series of crimson beads of light in the shape of a cross on the far side of the oblong room. They mounted the stairs, Warda's hand firm on Spara's back. At the third floor of the watchtower, Warda threw open the first door on her left, revealing a quaint bedroom with pastel linens and fresh-cut flowers, carefully arranged in several vases placed throughout. It's nice to be home. Spara drew in a deep breath and faltered to the edge of her bed. Warda gathered a wash basin and a clean cloth. First, let's get you cleaned up and changed. Then I'd like you to get some rest. It will help you recover, she said, unbuttoning Spara's gown along the side of the bodice. Yes, I need sleep. Promise me you won't make any decisions in my absence. Spara's gown fell to the floor, and she slipped her amulet over her head and handed it to Warda, who placed it on the bedside table. We wouldn't think of it, my dear, Warda said. You've sacrificed much for our benefit. We will take good care of you. Spara smiled as Warda washed the smears of dried blood and caked dirt from her cheeks. What? Warda asked, as a shallow smile graced Spara's face. Nothing. I'm just feeling better. Good. Warda untied Spara's bun and brushed her long black hair. She placed the brush down and helped Spara to bed. Warda sat at Spara's side for some time, watching her sleep and listening to her nervous murmurs. Poor child, she whispered, stroking Spara's hair. You are a harbinger of inevitable change, for which I find myself ill-prepared. I can sense Vela has left Tiberial, so I have no choice but to believe your story. My only question is, what is the right path forward? Assured that Spara was sleeping soundly, Warda plucked Spara's amulet off the side table and left to rejoin the others. They sat around a circular wooden table at the center of the great hall. Pyra was pensive and watched Warda as she descended the stairs and approached the table. How are we to believe her account when she clearly has lost her faculties? Ember asked. Surely you can feel the gods have departed Tiberial, Marina said, unless you have lost yours as well, Ember. Yes, I felt the void, and it besieges me. I wasn't sure of it until I saw Spara's eyes, and even then, I didn't want to believe it. None of us do, Warda said, tossing Spara's rhodium orb on the table, the chain attached to it coming to rest in Adelon's hand. The chain matched each of their own. She's in no condition to go with us. Today's events have drawn too much of her power, and it will take time for her to heal. We must sequester her on Tiberial and ascend immediately. We would be foolish to wait and allow the dragons the opportunity to hunt us now that our gods have left. Surely they too have sensed Vela's departure. I won't leave her behind. Adelon pushed himself back from the table in disgust. How can you even consider such a betrayal? What other choice do we have? Torrid asked, leaning back in his chair with his feet crossed upon the table. I know you love her, but this is what's best for us and Tiberial. Without her icon to give her power, we can easily contain her in this realm. Adelon strode across the room, the walls bulging around him from the force of his indignation. I know you were right, but my heart breaks. Can we at least ensure she will receive the care she deserves? She's a mystic, is she not? I will not tolerate any harm coming to her. Pyra ambled to Adelon's side. She grasped one of his huge hands in both of hers, and the walls returned to their normal state. She pushed up to the tips of her toes and whispered in his ear. Adelon placed his free hand on the dome of his bald head. Very well. Pyra will see to Spara's accommodations. We must take great care to hide her away. There are many who would seek to abuse her power. She's not to become a tool for mortal conquest." "Of course," Ember said. "None of us want to see her hurt further. We simply cannot risk waiting for her. Pyra will attend to Spara's needs, while the rest of us prepare for ascension. Make haste to your waystones and await Pyra's signal. We ascend together." Pyra placed her right hand on Adelon's broad chest. "You have my word, Adelon. I will treat her with the utmost care." Adelon nodded and took his leave, bounding up the stairs. The door to his room slammed shut. Pyra turned to the others. "There's much to do before we ascend." "You can never let him know where you hide her," Warder said. "Don't let any of us know. He will tear the heavens apart to get back to her." "Of course," Pyra scowled. "I know better than any how much she means to him. I promise. Only I will know what becomes of her." Chapter 1. It is told that the creator gods themselves chose Tiveriel upon which to set free the spark of life, the first of their grand experiments. The Gatekeeper's Abridged History of Tiveriel, Volume 1, Chapter 1. Unearthed from the ruins of Meriden, the month of Anar, 1217 AT. Umra the Peacebreaker sat on Splinter's back, peering across the snow-covered fields to the ruins of Antiken. The mist of his breath hung in the air between him and the towering spires of the ancient Ebenese city, which formed a jagged silhouette against the low afternoon sun. The half-orc drank from his waterskin, slaking his thirst, and nudged Splinter off Marina's path. With a snort, the horse trotted down the embankment and into the tall grass. Umra threw back the hood of his heavy, sable fur cloak and surveyed the frozen landscape, the air biting at his face. He pushed an errant lock of hair from his eyes and rubbed his hands together to warm them from the bitter cold. The memories of his confrontation with King Eleazar 2 years earlier came rushing back to him, and his skin prickled. At the onset of their meeting, the Ghost King had been less than hospitable, preferring to clash swords and refer to Umra as a mongrel on account of his half-orc blood. Ultimately, however, the king conceded to Umra keeping Forsete, the Ebenese sword, in his possession until he put an end to the Brothers of Resurrection and their plan to summon Nor from the hells of Pragaris. Umra hoped, now that he was returning Forsete as promised, their second meeting would prove more amicable. Regardless, his stomach twisted. He felt stronger than ever, having regained the strength and weight he had lost while trapped between the mortal plane and the hells of Pragaris, where he and Vela defeated Nor, but his anxiety remained with him. It was as much a part of him as the rhodium pyramid that hung around his neck. The rhodium pyramid that identified him as a mystic, having completed his final suffusion months earlier. Other than the improved strength and the ability to summon Forsete at his will, he was still unsure what it meant to have achieved mysticism. The ruins were quiet, almost beckoning him forward. He guided Splinter through the overgrown rubble of the fallen city, a maze of ruins leading to Forsete's home. They weaved in and out of the shadows of the buildings still standing, reaching the city's central tower from which King Eleazar and the other spirit warriors of Antiken had come when he was last here. Umra reined Splinter to a halt and peered up, following the smooth facade of the jade spire into the heavens. "No telling how long this will take." Umra patted Splinter on his muscular neck and dismounted. "Stay here as long as it's safe." Splinter snorted and twitched. Umra crept toward the 2 colossal doors of the tower. They were completely smooth, with no handles or visible hardware, and were perfectly flush with the building's facade. Made of the same fine jade construction, even at this close range, the building's glossy finish seemed near perfect and reflected the sun's light back at the surrounding terrain. He inspected the doors, looking for a means of entry. Not seeing any, he put a shoulder to them, but they did not move. He grimaced and summoned Forsete to his hand. The sword glowed a vibrant blue as it took material form. Ah, my final resting place. You intend to return me to these halls of the dead. The sword's voice resonated in Umra's mind. I intend to keep my promise. I have no desire to lose you as my companion, Umra said. Then approach the doorway with me in hand. I shall grant you passage into the great tower of Antiken. I am welcome here. Umra had learned to trust in the sword's judgment and held Forsete out in front of him. Forsete met with the surface of the doors and passed through them, a pulse of energy rippling along the structure's surface like a still pond disrupted by the first drop of rain. Umra's arm followed, and then the rest of him, until the tower swallowed him entirely. It was dim and uncomfortably hot within the ancient building. The air was stale, despite waves of heat buffeting Umra's face. Forsete lit and revealed a great hall with jade pillars reaching up to a vaulted ceiling high overhead. How glorious it must have been before the War of Rescission, when it was a place of the living, the center of a great society. Now, a thick layer of dust covered every surface, obscuring any ornamentation once visible. By Forsete's glow, Umra proceeded into the room, passing banquet tables and suits of armor fashioned from green glass. Swords, polearms, and other weapons of the old Evenese style adorned the walls. In the center of the room was a large fire pit, with a pyre of wood prepared for burning. Beyond the fire pit, the room extended past Umra's field of vision, unveiled to mortal eyes for the first time in nearly 2 millennia as he crept. Straight ahead, in the undercrofts we shall find what we seek, a forge room with a fire undying, despite being long neglected. My birthplace. Umra held Forsete above his head to cast its radiance further. At the far end of the room, a wide stone stairwell led down to the undercrofts. A chill ran up Umra's spine. At the bottom of the staircase, a long hallway led toward a door which emanated a warm orange glow. Umra followed the light and passed through the door, holding Forsete before him as his key. On the other side, the undercroft opened into an expansive room with a large forge glowing hot along the far wall and an equally impressive anvil of black steel at its center. Ancient Evenese glyphs, flickering with preternatural vigor, surrounded the yawning hearth. Along both side walls, there were 6 white marble plinths, each holding an ancient Evenese weapon resting on violet silk. Umra circled the room and passed an ornate helm of gold with a single horn arcing from its right side, a pair of bracers adorned with opalescent gems that swirled with discontent, a dagger of green glass, and a bow made of black wood with scribing that glowed frost white, artifacts of a bygone age. The final 2 tables were devoid of their displays. Umra kneeled and retrieved a pile of dusty silk fabric laying at the foot of one. He shook it out, sending a cloud of dust billowing into the air, and returned it to its rightful place. Carved upon the plinth's apron in Old Evenese was the name Forsete. The clerics of Antiken gave one of them to Modig Farin so he could return order to Evelium, a voice said from over Umra's shoulder. The other you hold in your hand, mongrel, stolen from our keep ages ago by a man jealous and undeserving. Umra turned to see the ethereal form of King Eleazar. He remained quiet, waiting for the spirit to continue. But you have kept your word and brought the mighty Forsete home. And, against your desire to keep it for yourself, Eleazar said. It has not been my experience for your kind to withstand temptation in favor of fulfilling a promise. King Eleazar. Umra took a deep bow, ignoring the insults. You were wise enough to let me keep Forsete in my possession so I could complete my quest and save Evelium from certain destruction. Forsete served me well, and I was successful only with its help. I now return the fabled blade to your possession as promised, despite the powerful bond we have formed. Umra turned the blade and presented it to the king, pommel out. King Eleazar drifted forward and reached out for the sword. I witnessed this success you speak of. For a time, you crossed over into my purview, the realm between the living and the dead. A journey from which you have not fully recovered. Or is it something else that weighs upon you? Everything has changed. Everyone wants something from me. My life, was less complicated when we last met. The true cost of heroism. Do you think the life of a king is any different? I know your path all too well. If I should travel it today, I would value this sword beyond all else. And yet, here you stand before me ready to relinquish a most powerful ally. I must admit, you are quite unique. Yes, Forsyte proves to be an invaluable ally. And I admit, there is a piece of me that wishes to keep the blade for myself, Umra said. But I'm a man of my word, and so return it to a much-deserved rest beside your glowing forge. King Eleazar gripped the handle and lifted Forsyte from Umra's grasp. The blade's glow shifted to green as it attuned with its king. It has been a long time since I last held this weapon. And yet, its feel is familiar to me, as though it had never left my side. The king inspected the sword, turning it in his hand. Its form has changed while in your possession, and for the better. With exceptional speed, King Eleazar swung Forsyte down upon Umra. As the blade arched toward him, Umra's armor materialized. Unlike when the two clashed in the fields outside Antiquan 2 years ago, the plates were now smaller and shaped like diamonds, interlocking in a pattern which gave them the appearance of dragon scales. The armor's color was a pure silver white, and its surface more reflective than before. Umra stood his ground as Forsyte stopped just shy of his face. King Eleazar gritted his teeth as he willed the blade to his target. The green radiance Forsyte assumed in Eleazar's phantasmal hand gave way to blue, the color of Umra's aura. King Eleazar retracted the sword from Umra's space. Most rare, he said. This explains why Forsyte favors you. You have completed your rhodium suffusion and ascended to mysticism. You were an angel among men, and now walk the bridge between mortality and divinity. Odug is, to this day, no fool. He has shared much with me about the ways of the paladins of old. Yes, he was a great warrior, reaching his platinum suffusion as you had when we last met. He sacrificed much for Tiveriel, including bequeathing his soul to this blade. You have rewarded him with the honor and prestige he deserved in life. What can you tell me of mysticism? Umra asked. I have no idea as to the ramifications of this achievement, only that Vela willed it. There is only so much I can impart upon you, as I never pursued such a path in my mortal life. To realize the extent of your powers, you must find the one other of your kind left on Tiveriel. Unfortunately, she remains hidden from me, Eleazar said. Of whom do you speak? The spectral king smiled at the asymmetry of the information between them. Despite Umra's apparent power, his lack of knowledge and experience betrayed him. Eleazar lowered Forsyte and glided over to the table where the great sword had lain for ages, gesturing for Umra to join him. Spara, of course, he said. The mystic? I thought they all ascended to Kalmandan at the end of the War of Rescission. Umra's armor dissipated like smoke from a snuffed-out fire. Not all. For reasons unknown to me, the others left Spara behind when they ascended. They took great care in hiding her away for all eternity. But that is only because there has never been another to achieve a rhodium suffusion until now. If you know what to listen for, you will hear her calling to you. She will have witnessed your achievement and will seek you out with the hopes you will free her. Calling to me, Umra said. I should go to her then? Only if you want to understand your full potential. But I caution you against the burden. You have already become more powerful than any man on Tiveriel. Why would you seek more? So I could better protect it, Umra said. There are yet threats to our land. There will always be threats. But, if you must, listen for her call, Paladin of Vela, and do not return to these halls of the dead. You no longer have use for them, nor they of you. He offered Forsete to Umra. I have no need of this weapon. It is mine alone to give, though Telsidor denied me that right so many ages ago. Consider your oath to me kept, and Forsete a sign of my respect. I only ask you think of me and my kind should you reach Kalmandon. We grow weary of being trapped in this world. Thank you, King Eleazar, Umra said, grateful to have Forsete back in his possession. You have proven yourself a great ally, and I shall never forget your graciousness. I promise to do what I can on your behalf, should the day come. King Eleazar nodded, his form fading, leaving Umra alone in the forge room with its antiquities. His task completed, Umra left the forge room and made his way back upstairs to the tower's main doors, Forsete lighting his path. The paladins of Antiquin appeared as Umra walked, forming a line on either side of the great hall. They held their swords high. My brothers come to bid me farewell, Forsete said. They have not forgotten me after all these years. Umra came before the enormous doors, stopped. He turned to face the paladins, thrust Forsete into the air. The spirit of Antiquin lives on, the apparitions bellowed in unison. The spirit of Antiquin lives on, Umra said, nodding. The ghosts vanished, leaving Umra and Forsete alone once more. Umra turned his attention back to the door. Placing his shoulder against its smooth jade surface, he pushed the door open and stepped out into the frigid evening air. Umra closed the door behind him. Splinter waited a few feet from where Umra had left him, digging at the snow with a hoof. Umra eyed the tower, squinting against the falling sun. As he approached his steed, the rhythmic beat of his heart resonated in his right ear. He rubbed the ear, exercising his jaw back and forth in an effort to rid himself of the annoyance. With the persistence of an orc drummer leading an army into battle, the thrum continued. He climbed upon his saddle and the pulsing faded. He turned Splinter in a full circle, the thrumming in his ear amplifying and fading as though it were the needle of a compass. Could this be Spara, the mystic, calling out to him as King Eleazar had foretold? There was only one way to find out. We head north, he said, pulling the reins to the left. We'll make camp once we put some distance between us and Antiquin. Splinter snorted and trod forward. The pair rode out of the fields and back onto Marina's path, turning onto Englyn Pen Way toward Vanyarain. All the while, the persistent rhythm grew in Umra's ear. Chapter 2. Within its confines I can never be found. Here I may pursue my work undisturbed. Entry from Aldrasor's journal, undated. Discovered in the Tower of East Savan, month of Riet, 1444 A.T. Alessa Elmont lounged in an oversized canopy bed, surrounded by plush canary-yellow pillows and billowing silk curtains. She had grown accustomed to life within the confines of Castle Foreen, but now, 9 months pregnant, Cleric Dynava had prescribed bed rest due to Alessa's proclivity for early contractions and dizzying headaches. She had taken to embroidery to pass the time, but she found time did not pass quickly enough. The gray stone walls of her ample bedroom seemed to be slowly closing in on her. Alessa had enjoyed her pregnancy, despite not loving King Arving and receiving no love from him in return. Their arrangement was one of practicality. The king needed a healthy heir, and Alessa needed a stay of execution for her eldest brother. Only a sovereign could deliver such a reprieve, and the king's promise of naming her queen upon the birth of their child was an assurance she could not come by otherwise. The idea of delivering unto Evelium the next of the Forine bloodline, and the possibility of helping sculpt the kingdom's future as its queen had grown on her, but neither were her aspirations prior to the king's proposal. She had had other dreams. Dreams of seeing the world outside Vanyarain. Dreams of traveling to far-off continents with exotic cultures and foreign landscapes. Tyveriel offered so much more than this. Ever since the Barrows Pact rescued her from the clutches of Verena the Decayer and the Morian Coven, her family was welcomed at court and grew close with the king. Her parents saw it as a means to gain stature for the Elmont name and to marry Alessa off to a wealthy young lord. Unfortunately, her brother, Phineas, saw it as an opportunity to further his penchant for gambling and other untoward behavior. When the broken body of another young aristocrat was found on Castle Forine's battlements with Phineas's dagger lodged between his ribs, Phineas was brought before the Elders' Syndicate and sentenced to death by hanging. A knock on the door snapped Alessa from her ruminations. She pushed herself up in bed and adjusted the pillows behind her. She hastily fixed her tousled ebony hair and folded her hands atop her protruding stomach. "Come in!" The door swung open, and a guard entered the room. "My lady," he offered a shallow bow, "the king wishes to join you presently." "Of course. Please, don't keep him waiting another moment." The guard stepped aside and stood at attention. King Arving swept in from the hallway. His skin was fair and his hair was dark, and he possessed the pointed ears and high cheekbones of an Evanese pureblood. He wore emerald green robes and a simple gold circlet that crossed the middle of his forehead. "That will be all," he said to the guard, who bowed and pulled the door closed behind him as he left. The king turned toward Alessa. "My dear, how are you faring? Dynava informed me you have been put on bed rest until the child arrives." He came to the side of the bed. "Yes, most unfortunate. An abundance of caution, I'm sure. I feel quite well, other than the occasional headache." "Dynava is a knowledgeable cleric. Heed her words. Is there anything we can do to make you more comfortable? I hope your midwife is attending to your needs." "She is, and the chambermaids have been most attentive." She stifled a yawn. "I am a bit bored, however." She held her current embroidery project toward him. It was a delicate patch of foxglove, pink, and lavender flowers arising from a patch of elegant greenery. "There are only so many flowers I can stitch." The king took the hoop and inspected the design on the stretched, almond-colored fabric. "You have a natural ability. I would not have the patience for it myself. How would you like to hear a story? Maybe it would break the monotony a bit." Alessa was surprised by the gesture. She shifted over on the bed to make room for the king. "That would be lovely." King Arving placed the embroidery hoop on the bedside table and sat beside Alessa. He took one of her hands in his and stroked it. His touch was kind, gentle. Alessa drew in a deep breath and exhaled slowly, allowing herself to relax. "Have you heard the legend of the Grey Queen?" King Arving asked. "I have, my lord. My parents told me when I was a child. I think every child in Evelium has been frightened by that tale." The king smiled. "Excellent. I would like to share with you the truth behind the legend." Alessa felt a flutter in her chest. She leaned toward King Arving and gazed into his chestnut eyes. The king cleared his throat. "As you know, the legend of the Grey Queen harkens back to the Age of Grace, when gods walked Tyveriel with the mortal races. It was told that one day, men would inherit Tyveriel and usher in an age of tranquility and prosperity. This age would continue until the birth of the Grey Queen, who would set civilization as we know it ablaze and bring mankind to its knees." "Yes, I know the legend well." "Of course. But what you don't know, what so few outside the Forine family know is, on the day of his coronation, Modig Forine, the father of Evelium, hosted a great banquet to celebrate the onset of a new age and share his vision for Evelium with his most trusted advisors. Amidst the ceremony and merriment, The banquet was interrupted by a powerful fate who appeared from thin air in the middle of the great hall. The room was captivated as this ancient witch, in tattered black trinket-covered robes, perused the room. When her gaze settled upon Modig Farine, she pointed a crooked finger and beckoned him toward her. He strode forth and met her in the center of the great room, surrounded by his closest confidants. It was then she cursed him for his transgressions against the wild things of Evelium during the War of Dominion. As recompense for the death he wrought to end the Age of Chaos, neither he nor his descendants would ever sire a healthy daughter. This is the reason the Forine line of kings is just that. A line of kings devoid of queens and princesses. Every female child born to the family has died. In essence, they were each Grey Queens. You see, the tale your parents told you is a metaphor for the curse upon my family, which lasts to this day.
What of your sister?
King Arving sighed. A most delicate subject. I implore you to keep between us.
Of course.
Alessa leaned further toward the king, her round stomach interfering. Genta does not bear the mark of Forine. My father so desperately wanted a daughter which he knew he could never have. In fact, he was so desperate that he arranged for my mother to conceive in secret by another sire, with the hope she would have a girl. All of Evelium celebrated Genta's birth, the one and only Forine princess. Outside of myself, and now you, only the Elder Syndicate is aware of her illegitimacy. Alessa's mind whirred.
And why do you share this sensitive information with me now?
Partly to entertain you in your current state, partly to share with you a secret I've never been able to express, and partly to guide you in prayer for the birth of a healthy son. I'm afraid that if our child is a girl, she will be stillborn or worse. Alessa's stomach nodded at the thought, but she feigned a smile.
Worry not. This baby kicks me with a vengeance. Here, feel.
She placed the king's hand on her belly. The baby thumped within her. A smile of true delight spread across King Arving's face.
If you tap my belly, he will tap back. I have no doubt he will be a great king like his forefathers.
Tap your belly?
Is the king shy?
Alessa asked coyly.
Yes, tap my belly.
King Arving raised a finger and tapped. The baby kicked the same spot in reply. Oh, he is fierce, a warrior. He possesses the spirit of a Forine.
Did you expect anything less? The child is your heir.
The king nodded, withdrew his palm from Alessa's stomach. It is getting late. I should let you rest.
You are welcome to spend the night. I would enjoy the company.
Thank you. I'm afraid Cleric Dynava would not approve of me keeping you any later than I already have. You need your strength. I will check on you in the morning. King Arving stood and strode for the door.
My king?
Alessa asked as he opened the door.
Any news of my brother?
King Arving kept his back toward Alessa. His guards have been instructed to treat him as they would the brother of their queen. Should all go well with the child, he shall be released as soon as my heir is named. I will keep my promise as you have kept yours.
Thank you. I hate to think of him languishing in the dungeon for a crime he's adamant he did not commit. He has many faults, but murder is not among them.
Please, don't trouble your mind about such things now. Focus on your health and that of our child. All else will be seen to in good time. Alessa nodded. It was impossible for her not to think of Phineas and his freedom being held over her head. The birth of her child and her brother's fate were inextricably intertwined. For nearly a year, he'd been locked in a cell awaiting the gallows. She hoped he knew how much she sacrificed on his behalf. That maybe his time in prison would not be in vain, but rather he would redirect his life toward virtue. Good night, Alessa. King Arving slipped through the doorway, leaving her alone.
Good night, my king.
Alyssa's head ached. The room spun. Frustrated, she threw herself back against the pillows. She, too, was imprisoned. This room was her dungeon, this bed her cell, this child her sentence. Hopefully, it would all be worth it in the end. Chapter 3.
Inexplicably, the boy, this Aiditi as the Elandrians call him, could transform matter at his will. I would not have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself.
A Traveler's Guide to the Odd and Obscure by Santina Vake. Chapter 23. Unearthed from the homestead in Marix Cay, month of Riet, 1407 AT. Umra slowed Splinter to a trot as they entered Travesty's east gate. He had not returned to the city where he grew up since the death of his adoptive father, Ivory Lapping, and had no intention of ever doing so until King Eleazar told him of Spara's presence, and the thrumming in his ear drew him back home. The pulsing had grown with every stride Splinter took toward Travesty, and now resonated in his mind as an almost deafening roar. He dismounted, favoring to walk the streets and tread to the temple where he once lived. Umra paused at the temple gate, a flood of memories rushing back to him. He could envision his younger self running across the courtyard, several monks chasing him as he laughed. A smile broke across his face. Such a simple time. He sighed and then looped Splinter's reins around a fence post. "I hope this won't take long," he said, patting the side of Splinter's neck. "Behave yourself." Umra had forgotten how bitterly cold it could get this far north into the province of Winterash. Umra's cloak billowed in the frigid breeze as a light flurry of snow fell. He shook off the chill and crossed the empty courtyard to the heavy wooden doors leading to the nave, snow crunching beneath his feet. He opened the doors and welcomed the burst of warm air that hit his face. He drew in a deep breath and entered the temple. The temple was as quiet as he remembered. There were rows of pews on either side of a central aisle, and a myriad of candles dripped wax on the stone floor. Several people sat toward the front of the nave, praying before the large wrought-iron triangle suspended from the vaulted ceiling high overhead. Umra threw back his hood and strode to a young monk who had just entered from the east transept. Noticing the half-orc's approach, the monk stiffened his spine and cleared his throat.
May I help you?"
he asked, in a soft voice that feigned acceptance. "Can you let Father Rias know Umra the Peacebreaker seeks an audience with him? He will know the name."
"Know the name? I should say so,"
the young monk said, a bit too loudly. The others within the church glared back at him. A broad smile broke across his face.
"The older fathers still share stories of you whenever something causes a disturbance on temple grounds," he whispered.
"I suppose I left an impression then," Umra said. "Could you fetch Father Rias for me? I'm here with urgency."
"Right away. Please make yourself comfortable until I return."
The monk left by the door through which he had entered. Umra untied his cloak, placed it on a pew, and sat beside it. He shut his eyes and gave himself a moment of peace. In the temple's quiet, the steady pulsing returned to his right ear. He rubbed his temple, hoping the nuisance would abate, but it persisted, a slow, rhythmic thrumming.
"Brother Umra," the monk said, "Father Rias will see you presently."
"Thank you," Umra said, the pulsing fading into the background. He followed the monk out of the nave and down a long, window-lined hallway connecting the temple proper to the monastery's door. They continued up a narrow flight of candlelit stairs and into a quaint library.
"Father Rias will be here shortly. Please, make yourself at home. I must get back to my duties."
"Thank you, brother."
"Think nothing of it. I was happy to help, Brother Umra."
The monk left Umra in the library. Umra walked the perimeter of the room, perusing the books that filled the oak shelves lining its walls. 2 large windows gave the library an airy feel, uncharacteristic of most he had visited. He ran his fingers across a multitude of leather bindings and thought of the last time he had been in this very room. Ivory sat alone at the oval table in the middle of the room. He hunched over a book as Umra bounded in to get him, as it was past time for their daily training session.
"Umra, before we go downstairs, come and sit with me for a moment,"
Ivory said. Umra rolled his eyes, but obliged, sitting in the chair beside his adoptive father.
This book,
Ivory said, holding an olive-green leather text up for Umra to see.
I have just finished studying it for the 9th or 10th time. It is a compilation of ancient texts and my own learnings. In the future, it will prove invaluable to you. When you do not know how to proceed, return here and read it.
What's it called? Umra asked.
It does not have a name. It is safer that way. It will only have meaning for you, and only when the time is right.
Umra, Father Rias said, entering the room.
My, you have filled out nicely.
Umra snapped away from the wall of books he was staring at and greeted Father Rias with a broad smile. Father Rias, it's wonderful to see you. I'm glad to see the years have been kind to you. The tall Ebonese man approached and put his hands on Umra's shoulders, inspecting him with hazel eyes.
It seems Brother Ivory was right. You were destined to become a good man. I dare say great. I can read it on your face.
Thank you, Father. I trust all is well with you?
I have no complaints other than the normal aches and pains that come with age. And those I chose to look at as a reminder of all the blessings the gods have bestowed upon me. Otherwise, travesty continues to grow, and our flock along with it.
That's good news, Umra said.
Tell me, son, what brings you back to us unannounced on this frosty morning? Is everything all right?
A book, actually. One from my father's collection. I thought of it recently and was wondering if you still had it in your possession.
Of course. We kept all of Ivory's things in case you should someday come back for them, as he hoped. I'm glad you have. But you will not find his books in this library. We packed them and all his possessions away in your training room downstairs. Take any of Ivory's belongings you see fit. He bequeathed them all to you.
Thank you, Father. I shouldn't take up any more of your time.
I would offer you an early lunch, but I am needed in the temple for service,
Father Rias said.
If you care to spend the night, I welcome you as my guest for dinner.
I appreciate the offer, but I'm not expecting to stay the night. Perhaps, if I am still here late in the day, I will change my plans and join you.
Fair enough,
Father Rias smiled.
You remember your way to the Undercroft, don't you?
Like it was yesterday, Father. It was nice seeing you.
And you as well, Umra. May Vela shine her light upon you.
She does, and may she for you as well. Father Rias left the room, his long tan robes dragging behind him. Umra gave him a moment, and then left the library, nearly breaking into a run down the hallway. He hurried down a staircase, past the ground floor and into the Undercroft below. At the base of the stairs was an open door leading down another hallway with 3 doors along its right wall. He went to the last of the 3. His heart raced with childish excitement at the prospect of returning to his old training room. He grabbed an oil lantern from the wall and threw open the door. He walked inside and closed the door behind him. Other than several crates piled along the wall next to Ivory's desk, nothing had changed. Umra looked the room over and recalled all the wonderful times he had within its confines. The rack of silvered weapons he used to practice with still graced the wall behind his training pit. The wood training dummy still stood in the center of the sand-filled pit, awaiting its next battle. Everything was in its place, other than Ivory. Shifting his attention over to the desk and the crates beside it, Umra forced the memories and emotions that accompanied his returning to this room back into the recesses of his mind and turned toward the future. The crates were each labeled. Umra searched the pile until he found one marked Books. He moved a couple crates that sat upon it to the side and hauled the heavy crate from its place and rested it on the floor. The lid was nailed shut. Umra focused on the rhodium pyramid he wore on full display around his neck. He searched for his god, Vela, in his mind, and welcomed the surge of warmth that coursed through his body. The etchings of wind currents on the pyramid's sides alit. Vibrant blue ether danced into the air. The pulsing in his right ear returned, this time somewhat more intense than earlier. He shrugged off the annoyance and placed his left hand at the top corner of the crate. Summoning Forcite to his hand, he sheared the lid of the crate from the base. Umra opened his hand and the blade vanished as quickly as it had appeared. He tossed the lid aside and removed some straw packed atop the crate's contents. He lifted out the first handful of books and placed them on the ground beside him. Checking their bindings, all were titled. None matched the muted olive tone he recalled. He reached back into the crate, retrieving a second stack of books. Still, no matches. After a third stack also disappointed, Umra's stomach churned. He tore into the rest of the books, casting aside one after another. Digging through the straw at the bottom of the empty crate, his hand brushed over one last book which he had missed in his frenzy. It was olive green, and had an unmarked binding just as Umra remembered. With a sigh of relief, he leaned against a stone pillar and slid to the ground, staring at the drab cover. He eagerly leafed through the pages. To his initial surprise, they were all blank. He worked his lower lip over one of his tusks, closed the book, and focused again on his icon. The pyramid glowed a vibrant blue, and a matching symbol appeared on the book's cover. Umra reopened the book, and the words inscribed on its discolored pages coalesced before him.
My dearest Umra, if you're reading these words, my soul has departed Tiveriel, and you have achieved your rhodium suffusion. I cannot tell you how proud I am to have had the opportunity to be your father, even though only through adoption. From the moment I saw you at the edge of Wicked's Pass, I knew you were capable of things the rest of Tiveriel would not understand, and eventually your path would move beyond the knowledge of man. As such, I compiled as many learnings as I could from the ancient texts relating to mysticism. It is far from complete, but should point you in the right direction. I hope in a direction toward the only other of your kind still on Tiveriel. Begin your search at Ember's Watch, where the mystics convened on the eve of their ascension. I wish you luck, my son. I miss you. Love, Ivory.
Hot tears ran down Umra's face as he read. Then the knowledge that Ivory understood his destiny all those years ago eased his aching heart. He sat on the cold stone floor for several hours, taking in the contents of Ivory's nameless tome, as it would come to be known, and knew what he needed to do next. Closing the book, Umra placed it on the desk along with his cloak and repacked the rest of the books he had pulled from the crate. He returned the crate to its place along the wall, covering it with its damaged lid and the other crates he had moved to the side. He put his cloak around his shoulders and slipped the book into one of its ample interior pockets. Umra took one last look about the room and drew in a deep breath, as if to fill himself with a sense of his past. He retrieved the oil lamp, pulled the door shut, and returned the oil lamp to its mount on the wall. He bound up the stairs and through the door. He found the monk who had summoned Father Rias for him earlier. The monk was joined by 3 others, all dressed in taupe robes. They chattered like schoolchildren. One of the monks tapped him on the arm as Umra approached and gestured toward him with a tilt of his head.
Brother Umra,
the monk said.
May I help you with something else today?
The other monk stood aside, eyes wide. Umra looked them over, nodded.
Yes. I need to get a message to Anaris. Does the temple still have birds for such purposes?
Of course. I'd be happy to facilitate. Please, follow me. Although I'm sure you know the way.
I'll follow your lead if it's all the same.
The monk marched forward, a sense of purpose in his steps.
You broke the wall in my room!
One of the monks blurted out excitedly.
Crack's still there!
Umra nodded, bit his bottom lip.
Sorry about that. I broke a lot of things when I lived here. I must be going.
He hurried from the room to catch up with his guide, who was holding a door open down the hall. As Umra neared, the monk entered a stairwell cloaked in shadow. He climbed the stairs with Umra a step behind.
As I'm sure you'll recall, the birds are kept in the North Tower. The church uses them to communicate between our disparate locations. We have several that regularly fly between here and Anaris.
I'll just be needing the use of one.
Of course.
They came to a landing and walked out into the open air of what looked like a bell chamber. An arched window spanning each of the tower's walls allowed for excellent views of Travesty and beyond. Instead of a bell at the chamber's center, there were 6 cages on a worn wood table, each filled with mourning doves. The birds cooed vigorously as the men approached. The monk opened a cage door and picked a bird with a blue ribbon wrapped around one of its ankles. You can write your message on one of those strips of parchment. He can set flight once we bind it to his ankle. Umra took a slip of parchment.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.